welcome to the Titletown Huddle on thegruelingtruth.net.
Welcome to the Titletown Huddle at thegruelingtruth.net, where the legends speak. I am Joe Pritchard, and along with me, once again, is Aaron Zepnick. And Aaron, we have some good stuff to talk about for once.
Absolutely, Joe. Big win on Monday night. I know Philly's banged up too, but now they feel the Packers' pain, from the last 5-6 weeks. So I don't feel the least bit sorry for them, honestly.
Yeah, they've done some pretty good things this year, Philly has, with what wasn't expected to be a very good team. They definitely have a find in Carson Wentz, but their lack of depth on the roster is finally coming back to haunt them. Give them a couple of years, though. They look like they're going to be a pretty good team again. But for the Packers, the offense showed that it's going to continue to roll like it has been, still averaging over 25 points a game.
Yeah, and, Aaron Rodgers being healthy is going to, obviously carry a lot of weight with how the Packers go. How he goes, the Packers go. So a little bit of left leg issues. There was a pad where he went under the tent. I know that's a big topic of discussion, what was going on under there and what's going on with his leg. It's kind of a mystery at this point, and I think they'll keep it that way so teams don't target, that area, and teams are probably going to anyway, but let's just hope that it doesn't ruin his mobility because it's one of his greatest strengths.
Right. We saw that. We know all about that from the end of 2014 when he had I believe it was a calf injury, right, where he really had limited mobility.
Yes. Yep, calf muscle, the bottom of the calf, and I actually experienced that this year. It's painful.
I would imagine so. Can you imagine trying to run away from a 300-pound defensive lineman with that?
No. Well, I was running away from fast high school football players and trying to keep up with them, and it wasn't easy.
No, I can't imagine it would be with that kind of an injury. Speaking of injuries, Clay Matthews still seems to be banged up, but he did get into the game and played quite extensively. Just doesn't seem to be able to stay healthy this year from what I'm seeing.
Well, he's never really been able to stay healthy, and that's the problem I have with, the only problem I have with him is just the durability of how much can he withstand, through a 16-game schedule.
Right, and it's not getting any easier as he ages. Now, of course, the everything that we were talking about early on, when the Packers were actually humming along here, was the receiving core and who was going to step up here. And it's been pretty clear that Devontae Adams is having himself quite a nice season. Starting to see a little bit of the old Jordy back once in a while here. We're catching flashes here. I'm hoping we see more of that next year as he experiences the second year back from the ACL. But did you see anything out of the backfield that made you perk up this week?
Well, not really. And, Starks had a couple of decent runs. Ripkowski had the nice touchdown run, which was nice to finally see a rushing touchdown other than Rodgers. But I'm hoping Christian Michael gives them that boost here once he's ready. I think the playbook, a lot of the verbiage is different. Some is the same, but a lot of it's different from what I've been seeing and hearing. And I think once he starts to get established, and I think they kind of figured that would be a couple-week project, and I think they're getting them ready for the Seattle game. And I think he'll really be able to carve their defense, knowing, they're going against it every day in practice. I'm hoping that's when he kind of has his first 100-yard game as a Packer. So it would be great to see.
Yeah, it would be definitely good to see the Packers not running an option with Aaron Rodgers. This isn't the 80s in the NCAA. We can't be sending our quarterback out on an option at this point. He did pull it off rather well, but I don't want to see Rodgers doing that any more than he has to.
No, and I think it was just a wrinkle, and we've been talking about that for quite a few weeks now with, giving teams something else to game plan around, giving teams something else to, keep an eye out for, and they pulled it off, and it was at the right time. the thing I wanted to talk about was the Randall Cobb usage. We talk about Devontae and Jordy, obviously great weapons on the outside. Devontae having a really good year, which I called. I said he would be the best stats receiver this year, and everyone kind of laughed at me when I said it. But I said it on our fantasy show on The Grueling Truth here on Tuesday nights. I called it that he would be the best fantasy receiver this year, and Oz Davis and Matt Andrews-Scavage both kind of chuckled. And I think Oz even said, wow, that's a bold prediction. So,
well, let me tell you a secret about Oz. Once in a while, he's wrong. He's not wrong all that often, but once in a while, I can get him. And it sounds like it was your turn this time.
Yeah, and I emailed him and Matt the other day and just reminded them that I called that, and they gave me the old golf clap, and the size. And but with Randall Cobb the other night, the thing I wanted to talk about was the quick little bubble screens and the quick side-to-side things that gets the defensive line and the linebackers running. And with the hurry-up, did you notice in the game Monday night, I don't know if the average fan would notice this, but they got them moving early and got them tired out, and it slows down the pass rush quite a bit, and it helps out the offensive line. And when you're playing against a strong front four, like Philly has a decent front four, I think that was a great game plan, the way that they came out and attacked them side to side and made them start moving laterally. And then when Philly got tired, they started to try to sub. Well, we all know that Aaron Rodgers is going to catch you with 12 men on the field if you try to sub. And that was just genius game plan, and it's about time. Like, I posted on Facebook during that first drive, like, this is what I've been saying all year. Like, get the defense moving. We ran slants. I think Gruden referred back to Sterling Sharp and Robert Brooks and Antonio Freeman and Driver, and I love slants, We finally ran some slants. We ran the screen a couple of times, even though it didn't work as well as it could have. It still serves a purpose and slows the pass rush down. And it's about time. That's all
most certainly, and that's why I love having you on this show, simply because you have that perspective as far as game planning goes that at my best I'm a little bit shaky on. So really nice that you were able to pick up on what McCarthy was trying to do, and definitely good to see that things are looking a lot better than they have the past few weeks.
Absolutely, and it opened up a lot of other things. And, yeah, the running game wasn't as productive as we'd like. We'd love to see a 100-yard rusher. We'd love to see 20 carries for 100 yards every game. It's not going to happen. And even the greats, Adrian Peterson, Barry Sanders back in the day, they had their games where they didn't get more than 30 or 40 yards. Now, for a full season, it's frustrating to see Aaron Rodgers leading your team in rushing, and not really having that home run threat from the backfield. That's the one thing I'd like to see the Packers attack in the offseason, is that home run threat from the backfield. Maybe Christian Michael is that guy. I don't think he's a home run threat based off of what I remember from him at Seattle. But I think they definitely need to go and find that home run threat out of the backfield.
Right. It had been Eddie Lacy, but I can't imagine he's a Packer next year, not with all the injuries and the issues from last season. I believe he's a free agent upcoming, if I'm not mistaken.
I wouldn't be so sure. Only because of the injuries, I think, helps Ted Thompson or, the Packers organization in leveraging with his agent that, hey, he's got to come back. We'll put him on a one-year contract, incentive-based, and he's got to come back, prove that he can keep the weight off, prove that he can be durable for a season or two. I would suspect that they can get him on the cheap. And if they can do that, I don't think it's a bad idea. So
right. All it takes is one team, though, to pay for his potential, and that's that on that, though. And we've seen worse free agency moves from teams in the past, so I'm not too confident in that, but hey, I would not turn that down either if that came through. Now, looking ahead to this next week, it's Houston, and they seem to be struggling as of late here, falling back into the pack in the AFC North. What do you got on Houston?
Well, they're without J.J. Watt, obviously their best defensive player. And offensively, they've struggled all year. They've been shut out a couple of times. I know that they have a lot of talent at the wide receiver position, especially with DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller, the rookie from Notre Dame. But my theory on Houston is they don't have their quarterback of the future. I know Osweiler got a lot of money. Denver let him walk for a reason and started from scratch basically with two rookie quarterbacks with Paxton Lynch and Trevor Siemian. But John Elway's no dummy, and for him to not even try to offer to keep Osweiler in Denver shows me that Houston made one of those free agency splashes that they probably regret at this point. If they don't yet, they will.
Yeah, well, let's put it this way. From a quick glance at the NFL standings, yes, they are first place in the AFC South with a 6-5 record, with Tennessee right behind at 6-6. But they have the third fewest points scored this season. They're at 194, which is 3 points less than the Cleveland Browns, although the Cleveland Browns have played one more game. They are also behind the LA Rams, or ahead. The only teams they're ahead of, I should say, are the LA Rams at 170 and the Chicago Bears at 178, both who have played 11 games along with Houston. And I mean, if you want to throw Cleveland behind as well, feel free to mentally. But they don't score a lot of points, and now the defense is one of the better ones in the league from what I'm seeing. But they're one of those rare teams that have a winning record by giving up more points than they've scored. That's not all that's sustainable, and maybe the Packers can take advantage of the less than dynamic Houston offense and have the defense have the second straight good showing.
Yeah, and I think Randall and Rollins both being back is helpful, and I think I think Ryan will be back in the middle this week, and who knows about Blake Martinez, but I think having them two corners, if nothing else, it adds depth, and now your 3 is on their 2 instead of your 4 on their 2. As far as where you're at in the depth chart and the receivers and DBs, so. It makes a big difference when you have a little bit of depth. You have other guys that can play special teams now instead of playing in the nickel or dime. We saw a lot less of Mr. Bryce. We saw a lot less of the linebackers. Thomas didn't play in the dime. They had Morgan Burnett in the dime more, which I think is a great move because he can cover any running back and any receiver or any tight end. So you have some flexibility and you have some things you can do now. So I didn't think the defense looked all that great in the first half. They were lost at times. I think there's still communication breakdowns, which is frustrating going into Week 13. So,
well, that is for sure. Philadelphia was unable to take advantage of those breakdowns, though, unlike the previous opponents over the last month or so. But looking ahead now, there's 5 games left. The Packers are 2 games behind the Detroit Lions in the NFC North. And a quick glance at the standings again tells me that a wild card is probably not something to bank on, especially with the Giants 3 games ahead. And the Redskins, who would have a tiebreaker on the Packers, also have a tie, so it's very unlikely they would have a tie with the Packers. But they are a game and a half ahead of the Packers as well. So a wild card isn't really a likely scenario for the Packers, but let's go ahead and take a look ahead. The Packers have Houston. They also have Seattle and Chicago in the next upcoming weeks here, and they finish with, I believe it's Detroit and Minnesota. I'm not quite sure on the order here at the moment.
Minnesota and then Detroit, the last game of the year at Detroit.
Minnesota and Detroit. Okay, perfect. So that will be of help there. Yes. So, what do you think it would take for the Packers to come out on top of this division?
Detroit losing, Minnesota losing, and the Packers taking care of business. I think if the Packers take care of 4 of these last 5, they have a shot at the division at 9-7 or better.
All right.
I think the Seattle game is the most losable game. But I also think that Seattle's offense is struggling, and if we can put up 20 points, I think we beat them. So it all depends, I guess, if we can stay healthy and, execute the offense the way they have been and stay hot on that side of the ball and take care of business on defense and special teams. I mean, they still got to play, there's a little over a quarter of a season left, so they still got to play every game. They're basically in the playoffs now. So enjoy the 5 weeks, enjoy this run. Regardless, if they don't make the playoffs, it's going to be a long off season, and, let's enjoy what we got left here and hope that they can make a run.
All right. Well, let's say for the sake of argument that the Packers do get on the heater here and win at least 4 of the last 5. It's not something that's a likely scenario in my mind, but it's something that the team is quite capable of doing if they do indeed get hot. Now, the fact that they would have 3 division opponents left is a huge help because likely they're going to have to beat all 3 to win the division. But if they do beat all 3, they have a 5-1 division record. It would have split with Minnesota and swept Detroit. So the tiebreakers would end up going the Packers' way. So this is within the realm of possibility. We're definitely going to play what if here for a few more moments because Detroit does have New Orleans in the Superdome this week. That seems to me like it's going to be one of those games that you're going to be checking a lot on NFL Red Zone because it's going to be going back and forth all day. They also have the Bears, the Giants, the Cowboys, and the Packers. So assuming the Packers are on the hot streak that they would need to be in playoff contention, Detroit has a pretty rough road ahead of them as well.
Well, they got four games that are losable, I think, very losable games there. Starting with New Orleans, Drew Brees is tough at home. New Orleans defense scares me a little bit, but so does Detroit's. I don't think they're very good on the road against good quarterbacks, and we'll see on Sunday how they do against New Orleans. But I picked New Orleans on the Grueling Truth Pick'em show, so we'll see if I'm correct.
All right. Well, we'll see if that comes into play here. Now, Minnesota has been swept by Detroit, so they are the least likely to win a tiebreaker between the teams. They have Dallas actually on Thursday night this week. Jacksonville, Indianapolis, Green Bay, and Chicago. So the schedule gets a little bit easier for them down the stretch if current records hold.
Yeah, I suspect Dallas will beat them. They could beat Dallas at home, but I don't see them outscoring Dallas right now with the way they're running the ball. Dallas is running wild. Their offensive line is tremendous. I could see Indianapolis beating them just because they have the Andrew Luck factor and could outscore Minnesota. But it really comes down to Dallas, Indianapolis, and Green Bay. I don't think we're going to get any help from Chicago. I don't think they win another game in the division.
Well, here's the positive thing when we're talking about Minnesota, is that the Packers take care of business in Lambeau on Christmas Eve. The ball is in the Packers' court as far as at least keeping up with Minnesota for the rest of the way. This also assumes that the Packers catch Detroit, which is no guarantee. But the Packers win the tiebreaker on division record if they beat Minnesota and at least one game against Detroit or Chicago, from what I'm seeing.
Absolutely.
So that is definitely a plus to have that in their back pocket. But it's all a moot point if the Packers don't come out and win a bunch of games here at the end of the season.
Yep, like I said last week, they got to go 1-0 every week. They're in the playoffs now, and I think basically if they could lose one of these next 2 games, and I think and still be okay, just because of the fact that Minnesota, could lose to Dallas and Indianapolis and the Packers. So that'd be 3 losses that give them 8. Then Detroit could lose to the Giants, the Cowboys, New Orleans, and the Packers. That would give them 8 as well. So right. 9 and 7 could win the division. Like I said, it's just you have to go out and take care of business this Sunday at home. And right now that'll be the main focus.
Don't mind us our dreaming because even last week it looked pretty bleak. We could still draw up the possibilities, have a few games marked as wins or losses in our head, but it all comes down to the Packers executing and having their defense step up, because they do have one of the worst defenses in the league as far as points allowed. And they're going to have to tighten up. Otherwise, even if they do somehow make the playoffs, it's going to be a very short run.
Well, when you have number 12 back there, you always have a shot. And
you always have a shot. That is for sure.
And that's the only hope we have. And you know, if we get one more stop than the other team and we outscore them on the scoreboard, that's all that matters. We can give up 500 yards and 35 points, but if we score 38, that's all that, you know, or even 36, that's all that matters.
Right, which has not been going the Packers' way as of late. They've given up quite a bit more than they've scored, which never ends well, obviously. The hope is that the defense can pull it together here over the last month of the season here, but I guess we'll be finding out on Sunday if this team is heading anywhere anytime soon. Do you have any final thoughts for this week?
I'll be sending you some pictures. I'll be posting some pictures on Sunday. I'll be up in the suite with my work. I am going to the Houston, Seattle, and Minnesota games, so I'll be at Lambeau live in the next 3 games here, and look for that on the Titletown Huddle on Facebook, and also you know, keep an eye out or keep an ear out for the shows coming up. It's going to be an exciting run. Let's all RELAX. I almost screwed that up.
Yeah, well, let's hope we keep having important games to talk about, because if we're not talking about important games, well, the season's over for us. So let's keep hoping for that, and we will see you next week here on the Titletown Huddle at thegruelingtruth.net, where the legends speak.
Thank you for listening to the Titletown Huddle on thegruelingtruth.net.